Welcome to another episode of the Sensible Hippie podcast. I'm your host, the Sensible Hippie, and today I have a wonderful guest, Dr. Lisa Thompson. Dr. Lisa Thompson is a best-selling author. She is a speaker, a Galactic Ambassador, a channeler, intuitive coach. She specializes in quantum, cosmic energy healing, past parallel life regression, and sound healing. She supports and empowers people to intentionally design their best life. She is an evolutionary biologist who understands the ancient DNA within humans and guides them into their intergalactic realm. Lisa also hosts a weekly podcast called Connection to the Cosmos with Dr. Lisa Thompson, where she has out-of-this-world conversations with extraordinary people. She has created 9 oracle decks and designs intentional jewelry inspired by her passion of travel and nature. She loves teaching online classes and leads retreats on the Big Island of Hawaii, where she also leads a UFO tour, which my husband and I got to enjoy this past July. And we had a wonderful time. Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to the Sensible Hippie podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
What's your book? This is an amazing book.
Oh, thank you.
So can you tell me a little bit about what made you decide to write this book?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So I've had quite the journey, a spiritual journey in my life. So I was raised in a metaphysical, esoteric, spiritual household where my mother was an astrologer for my early childhood into my teens. And then we moved from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma to Yelm, Washington to specifically attend a spiritual school of enlightenment. Yeah. And so that was quite a different way to grow up, because we were in the middle of the Bible Belt in Oklahoma. And my mother, she was raised Southern Baptist. And so when she left her religious roots, she's exploring all these metaphysical realms. And I was getting exposed to so many things outside of like normal, mainstream kind of religion. And when we were at our spiritual school, we were learning things like remote viewing, telepathy, opening up our clair abilities, and really understanding higher consciousness.
And this was in the 80s?
Yeah, it was. Wow. We moved there in 1986. Oh. Yeah. And so I'm 50 years old right now. And so it's been quite the journey, 37-year journey on that really hardcore spiritual path where, I meandered. I got off the path for a little bit, but really the book. So when I was 15, I had my first conscious experience of being taken onto a spacecraft. And it was a really beautiful experience. It wasn't scary at all. And what I found out later was that that particular group that I got to experience, I had been with them multiple times in my childhood. And so this was an experience that I got to have validated, which, I share that story in the book and I've shared it with you personally.
Yes.
And so having it validated as a teenager and knowing, okay, I'm not crazy, I didn't make it up, that was huge for me really stepping into this role as a Galactic Ambassador. But it's many years later, right? It's 35 years later after that experience that I'm really fully stepping into that. And so because in the 80s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, it was still kind of taboo to talk about extraterrestrials and UFOs because people thought, they didn't exist or you're crazy. But now, here we are with the government admitting, yes, these things are real and people are having a lot more experiences, sightings. Minds are opening. And so when I decided to write the book, I had already started the UFO tour. And so I was sharing verbally my stories to our guests. And then I've written other books. And so I was like, I should just start writing these stories. And I didn't know if I'd make them public, but I did. And people were resonating with them. And so people were feeling validated in their own experiences. And so some of my people that were reading what I was writing, they were just like, I feel a new book coming on. And I just need a little push like that to then I'm pretty prolific at writing. I can write very quickly. And so I wrote the book last year and I've had just amazing feedback on it. It's definitely not for everyone. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but for those that are open-minded to understand what this phenomena really is, that I wanted to share my personal stories. I wanted everyone to understand like some of the terminology, but then also how to open your own connection because we are all connected. We
Right.
all have the abilities, right? And so that's what I really want to share with the world and also to change the fear-based narrative.
And you say you're a galactic ambassador. What is that?
So what I now understand, I never would have thought of myself as that, but a couple of years ago, that term just it kind of came to me. It was like it landed in my lap, and so I tried it on, and I was like, okay, I guess that is what I'm doing. And so
Sounds good.
yeah, part of what being the ambassador is, if you think about an ambassador, it's kind of a bridge, a mediator, someone who is really helping to bridge the gap between different groups of people. And so what I feel my job is to, again, educate people on who these extraterrestrials, interdimensional, extra dimensional beings are, and understand that everyone can communicate with them. And at some point, we're going to have open contact here on Earth. And so there are different people like me. I'm not the only one here. There are many of us that are here to actually help bridge that so that people are not just immediately going into fear because there really isn't anything to fear. Now, there are different timelines and scenarios where there are some fear-based things that people might experience. However, it's not real. It's just a game. So
Okay.
that's one thing that I just really want to understand. The ambassadorship too is that I now channel different ET groups. And so I'm able to let them speak through me to share their own personal messages.
Do you have to be in some kind of a trance, or how does that
It's
work?
Yeah, there are different channelers work different ways. So some people go into a very deep trance where they have no clue what's going on. I like to be somewhere in the middle of wide awake and in that deep trance. So what I do is I let Lisa's ego step to the side where I can still kind of hear what's going on and I'm in control of my body. So, if I need to get a drink of water or eat or, use the bathroom or something, I can still do that. But I'm stepping aside so that they can speak freely through me without me trying to come up with the right words. And
Do they
so,
stay in a long time? I mean, if
um,
you
so far, not really. The longest that I have been in that kind of channeling state is maybe up to 1 hour. And
wow.
because it's a lot of energy to run through the body, especially
Mhm.
with these higher dimensional beings. And so for me, I'm fairly new to it. It's only been just over a year that I have been vocally channeling their energy. And so it takes a little while for the body to get used to it. So it is a practice.
Yeah. How did you learn that?
So, so that spiritual school that I grew up in was
Oh yeah.
actually taught by a channeled entity, an ascended master from Lemuria, 35,000-year-old warrior from Lemuria. And so growing up with that, number one, it was a little weird at first, but then when I got to experience what the messages were and the energy of that being coming through this lady JZ Knight, um, I knew that it was real energy, that it was not her because I had met her in person and completely night and day energy. So, but it was so separate. Like I thought there's no way that I could ever do that or would ever even want to do that because I wanted to be so normal for so long and fit in. And so when I started again doing the tours and writing about it, I had already connected with my Arcturian family, and I have other family too, other galactic family, but the Arcturians were the ones that came in strongest. And they're like, "We want to speak through you." And I'm like, it took me working through my own judgment of myself and that process and what it might sound like or look like to feel comfortable. So it was a process, but then I had a very good friend. She's also my publisher of that book. She channels Kuan Yin, and she's been channeling for 20 years. And so
Wow.
um, I had her on my podcast, and she was channeling, and she had she had been asked like, you should teach a channeling class. And so when we got done with the podcast, I'm like, you should really teach a channeling class. And so she did. And so
Wow.
I took her 4-week class, and I had already kind of been open to it in a different session with my friend Tracy, where she put me into a light regressive state, and I channeled in that state during that session. But with my friend Kira, who taught the class, I was able to then access it myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know when I read your book, you talked about being inside the craft,
Yes,
and you remember that.
I do. And
That's
that's
awesome.
that's also how I know it's not a dream. Dreams,
Mm,
we
mhm,
forget the details, right? Within the first 10 minutes of waking up. And this was a very kind of linear experience where I just, so being inside the craft, it was a small shuttlecraft. And so it was just me and my ET guide. And from the inside of the craft, it looked like the walls were completely transparent, where you could just fully see out into
wow.
space. And there's a movie, I think Disney created it. It's called Flight of the Navigator, and it came out maybe in the early 80s or mid 80s. But there's a scene where the little boy is flying in a craft,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
it's
remember.
almost identical, like the way it was like he's floating in space in this craft, and that's what it was like actually.
Were you scared?
No, not at all, because when when my ET guide, um, his name, the name he gave me, and I don't know if I wrote this in the book, was Dave. And so anyway, so he picked me up, but he looked very human when he picked me up. And so I was a teenager, and he looked like maybe he was 20 something years old, and
Wow.
really good looking human guy.
And he
I
picked you
mean,
up while you were sleeping?
yeah, so it was a
Side
night, it was a nighttime experience. So I don't even know how I got into the craft. I'm just now in the craft, sitting next to him, and he felt very familiar, like
mm,
I knew him, and so there was no fear whatsoever. And what I now understand is that I had been with that group many times where, so I was taken to Io, which is one of Jupiter's moons. And we were inside of Io. You cannot be on the surface of Io. It's a completely volcanic moon
okay.
where the surface is very toxic. So we were inside, and at this particular situation that I got to experience was like it was a tour instead of me being tested, because when I got there I could see all of these different rooms where people were being examined, kind of like a
Wow.
doctor's office where
Okay.
they're being examined, nothing scary, but just a regular kind of checkup. And so when I asked him, why we were there, what they were doing, and they were testing the people to see physiologically, genetically, if something happened to Earth, if they could live in an environment like that or something
Wow.
similar. And so that I had been in one of those rooms in my earlier years, but this time, again, it was more like I was getting to ask questions. I was only being toured around in this particular experience. And what I also found out later was like, okay, why were those of us that were brought there chosen? We each have a specific frequency range that we resonate within. And so those of us, we had this similar frequency to this group. And so there are different ET groups that resonate at a different frequency.
Okay.
And so there are going to be different experiences that people have based on their own specific frequency resonation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So does that, so because some people have terrifying experiences But
I would,
you don't. Yours is amazing. Very
yeah,
peaceful, very loving.
yes. Okay, I would love to speak to that fear-based piece because this gets into work, like regression work that I do.
Okay.
Okay, so the human mind, the human ego, it often wants to protect us from things, from change. And if there are shadows that haven't been worked through, our mind can turn situations into scary things that really aren't scary if we see them from a higher perspective and understand what's going on. And so when people have experiences where maybe they feel it was a fear based thing, when they get regressed to a deep enough level with a good enough therapist that is trying to get to understanding why that experience happened, like how they signed up for it, even at the soul level, contract level, then they understand, oh, okay, I actually volunteered for this. This is part of my life journey,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
they understand, okay, it wasn't actually scary, but they just didn't understand in that moment, like if they woke up in that experience where maybe they're getting tested or something, or maybe their eggs or their sperm are being taken for the hybrid program. There are different, different reasons why people are taken, but when they're understanding it, then they it takes the fear away and it empowers them actually. But there are therapists out there that don't get people to that deep level for understanding. They just want to bring up the memory, but they
Hmm.
only get to a certain level in that subconscious mind. And really, it's important to get to the deepest level of the subconscious mind, really to the higher self, where all the answers are. And
And
so,
this is something you do, right?
yeah, it is something I do. And I have helped people get their memories back,
Wow.
of contact experiences, missing time. And again, everyone who, in the work that I've done and the work that Dolores Cannon has done in helping people with this, she did this for over 30 years. And
Wow.
um, there was not one of her clients that ever left a session still in fear about what they
Wow.
experienced. Not one. And so that's pretty powerful, when you understand what you're coming here on earth to do. And so the group with that's just one of the many groups that I've actually been with in this life. So I am part of the hybrid program. And
What's
I
that mean?
know, so the hybrid program is a soul contract between the Zeta Reticuli gray beings
Okay.
that are very common that people experience,
Hmm.
and particular Earth humans, where the Zetas, what they had done is they had bred out all of their emotions because they thought mental abilities and logic were supreme. Well, what that ended up doing was it made them sterile, so they could no longer reproduce in a
Oh,
normal way, and they had to start cloning themselves. And that ended up like they were on the brink of extinction. And so what they realized the error of their ways. And because we as Earth humans, we have so many different ET races in our DNA, we're a beautiful combination and we still express emotions, sometimes too extreme, but so what the Zetas are doing is they're taking the best parts of their DNA, the best parts of the human DNA, and creating a spiritually advanced hybrid race of beings that then the Zetas can reincarnate into if they want to, and humans can reincarnate into. And so those of us that are in the hybrid program, so women, we have taken our eggs. They've taken our eggs. Men, their sperm have been taken for this program. And oftentimes, because the Zetas still don't have that emotional, nurturing kind of ability, what they do is typically in the dream state, they will bring the parent, like the Earth humans, onto the craft to nurture these hybrid children. And so I have friends that are also part of the hybrid program that have actually they have memories of being in the nursery and nurturing their
really?
babies. Yeah.
And so these babies, do they look like them or us?
They're a
No.
combination.
Oh,
Yeah. So typically they have very thin hair, because the Zetas are
oh, they
completely
have
bald.
hair.
So some have more hair, some, they've been trying to experiment with the mixture of being more human versus more zeta. And so you have this whole continuum of what they look like. But they do tend to have, bigger eyes, thinner hair, and they really are these really spiritually advanced beings. And they may be the first group that's able to actually live here on Earth among us. Right
Really?
now, they don't have a home planet. They live in spaceships,
Wow.
but they have so much of our DNA that they could actually physically live here. We just have to learn to accept them.
Do they age like us because they have human DNA?
They age much slower.
Oh, lucky them.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and we as humans have the ability to age slower than we do. We just have to tap into that part of our DNA
Oh,
that
okay.
keeps us in that youthful state,
Yeah.
because you're either growing or you're dying. And so the environment that you are living in within your mind, within your physical environment, directly impacts what DNA proteins are actually getting made, what are being expressed.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And we have all of this latent DNA inside of us. And so we really, when we're evolving, we're awakening as a consciousness, we are waking up that latent DNA, and our bodies have a beautiful ability to heal themselves. And so, Western medicine, it's good for things like broken bones or, things like that. But we innately have the ability to heal all illness within us,
Even cancer.
even cancer.
Wow.
And there are people that have done, cured themselves of cancer without Western medicine
I
intervening.
believe that. I know that. Yeah. I'm interviewing somebody tomorrow that did
Okay.
that. Yeah. Not through that realms, but still.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. So they are in the space, in the spaceship. They're just floating around because they don't have a planet.
There is a channeled entity known as Bashar that is one of these hybrids that speaks through a man named Daryl Anka. He's been channeling Bashar for years. And so Bashar gives a lot of information about what the hybrid life is like and how they understand things at this higher level. And right now, Bashar's estimate of actually contact with our hybrids is maybe 10 to 20 years. So how exciting would that be to
Yeah,
have these? But again, on Earth here, we have so much judgment
we
of
do.
how people look.
Hmm.
We have judgment of skin color, of, race, of sex, all of that. So we need to really start accepting and loving all types, all beings, for this contact to be able to happen successfully.
Is that part of your message
It
to
is. Yeah. So one of the things in my book is really to start embracing biodiversity. And I'm a former marine biologist, zoologist, and I absolutely love animals. And again, the weirder, the better. And if you look at some of the microscopic plankton,
Mhm.
animal zooplankton in the ocean, and you blow them up, I mean, there are some really crazy looking things out there, but they're perfect for the environment that they live in.
Mhm.
And so if we start thinking in terms of, you know, how how something looks is that way because that is what it needs to do to live in its environment, to feed or to locomote or to do any of the things it does.
True.
And all forms are beautiful.
That's true. Yeah. So that's part of your message. That's beautiful. So
Yeah.
when is your first memory of meeting with these extraterrestrial?
So I were I think I was really young, like really young. um I was not kind of a normal child. Well, number one, I was quite sick as a child. I had a lot of illness. And what I understand now is that the energy of being kind of I'll say a star seed, but there's a lot of, there are a lot of different meanings of starseed for people, but I am way more not of this earth than I am of this earth. And so this energy coming into this human body, the body had a really hard time handling that energy. And so I was continuously sick
Oh,
throughout up until maybe age 12. Yeah. And so I think that in those moments, I also grew up as an only child. And I had a lot of time alone. And I know when I was alone, I was off in other worlds. And my mom, she even, she knew I had some gifts, and everyone has gifts, but she knew that I could see things or experience things that maybe not everyone does,
mm-hmm.
or everyone has the ability to, but not everyone is turned on right
Mm-hmm.
away. And so she would encourage that.
That's
And
awesome.
so I, yeah, and I always was looking at the night sky, and I could see auras around people, and I just had these abilities that I didn't know that they were not normal. But I also was having telepathic communication,
Oh,
with animals, but also
wow.
with these beings.
Wow. That didn't frighten you.
No, not at all. It was actually quite natural. I came in really, I know that I chose my mother specifically so that I wouldn't have to go through life kind of being awake and then having to wake up, or being in a really hardcore religious family where then I would have to unpack that baggage. And so, not that I've always used my abilities, because what I did for a while, especially as an adult, was I would override my knowingness because of logic or expectation or obligation. And so I got myself into some situations that were not so pretty. Like, I have my first marriage was extremely toxic, abusive, and I stayed, because there was a contract that had to be fulfilled there, a
Oh,
karmic contract.
okay.
And so I knew that, like, even on the very first night I met him, we
Really?
simultaneously had visions of a life together where it was Scotland, time of William Wallace, so like really a long time ago.
Okay.
And he went off, we were new in the relationship. He went off to war, to fight with, William, and he got himself killed. And so, but then we also, now I know also karmically, in my one of the galactic lives that I have, I'm one of them, I'm somewhat royalty without it being a hierarchy, but he's my bodyguard in that
Oh,
realm. And so in this life, it's been interesting because it's like he's always had this, desire to be with me and equal to me. And so when we were together, he he was trying to be equal by pushing me down, essentially.
oh, yeah. He was abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I can understand that dynamic, and I have done what I can to clear the karma on that so that I don't we don't have to keep playing those roles with each other.
Yeah. So in this lifetime, you've already been with him, so you're not
Right. Correct.
anymore. Okay. So does that,
Correct.
so in your other lifetime when you were with him and he passed away, did you meet your next person and that
Well,
would be the same person now, or is that
it
doesn't work that way?
doesn't work that way.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that, in the quantum realm, all timelines exist simultaneously.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there really is no past, there is no future. So that's why I call it past slash parallel regression,
Yeah.
because so, humans, we think in a linear time sense. And so if something like a time of William Wallace in Scotland, because in our linear time, that was in the 12th century, or, 1200s, whenever, we think of that as the past.
Hmm.
However, it is actually still simultaneously going on.
Weird.
And right, it is. It's like a wacky, wacky science.
Yeah.
And so we can tap into these different realms. And so we do that by going deep into regression. That experience that I had with that ex husband on the first night we met, we were just looking into each other's eyes. And all of a sudden, this memory popped in.
Oh,
We again, simultaneously, I'm like, oh my God, I just saw us in Scotland. And he's like, I did too. And we were describing the same thing. Yeah.
wow.
And we did meet at our spiritual school,
Okay.
which also then caused me to think, okay, well, he's highly spiritual. We're learning the same things. And it actually, I think I forgave him, or like I stayed in that relationship far longer because of that spiritual
Mm.
connection.
Wow.
Um, where had it been a different scenario, I don't think, but I came to learn that lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you met your second husband, and was
Second
that
husband.
person from the past too?
So my second husband's an interesting, because I have husband number three now
I
that
know,
you.
I met him. He was very
Yeah.
nice.
So husband number two, I didn't heal myself. So I got out of the relationship with the first husband, and I had a daughter with him. She was 7 months old when I had to kick him out of the house, and that was one of the hardest times in my
Yes, I
life.
bet.
And we had a
Yes.
business together, and so like my entire world crashed. We had to shut the business down. I had to file for bankruptcy. Here now, I'm a single mom of a baby,
Yeah.
and I had to go get a job, and in that, I wasn't doing healing. I was just surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And I met my second husband, and he seemed like he was kind of the complete opposite. He was very charming. I mean, the original husband was charming too, to like the external world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so the second husband, he was very kind and, you know, very gentle, and he knew my spiritual background, and he said he was okay with that. Well, so we started dating. I ended up getting pregnant a little too fast.
Mm.
And so then, because of that, I felt obligated
Sure.
to stay in the relationship. But it was
Sure.
interesting because as soon as I was pregnant and he had me on the hook, he switched. He's a chameleon. And so the control issues started coming out, and then he no longer accepted my spirituality. It would turn into an argument. And so essentially, to survive in that relationship, I had to shut myself off a little bit from that spiritual world. And stayed there for 7 years trying
Oh,
to work, but we were in therapy twice.
wow.
I
You
mean, yeah,
tried.
I mean, I was doing everything to make this work
Yeah.
for my daughter and also for our son that he and I had had. And I just couldn't do it anymore because it was um, slowly, just like the previous relationship, like I knew if I stayed in that marriage, I was going to die. Either he was going to kill me or I was going to create illness in my body and die just to get out of it. And so the same thing started happening. Like I was getting really worn down from not being able to be myself. And so I made the decision, like, okay, I can't do it. We've tried therapy. You still get angry every time I bring up anything related to something that's not physical, that you can't touch, see, smell. you know and so when I left him, that's when I'm like, okay, I am the common denominator here. It's time for me to get back to my spiritual roots, for me to do some really deep dive healing, because I knew that it was my energy, my frequency that was attracting
Mm.
these
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
And so, part of that was actually learning regression therapy,
Um,
and it was understanding my human design. That's another modality that I do, and it was really, really. healing my ancestral bloodline because we had these self-love issues going back generations. And so working through all of these different processes, then I came out, and it's an ongoing healing journey. We are human, and so no matter how deep we go, there are always going to be more layers to expose. But I got to a point where I was feeling really good. I was empowered. I knew my self love, my self worth, and that's when I met Skip, my current husband.
Yes.
And night and day difference in terms of that relationship versus these other ones.
And he understands what you're going through and
Yes,
what you're feeling and what you saw, yeah, all your experiences, and he embraces that. So that's amazing.
yes. He
Yeah.
has been my biggest supporter. He's my rock. So yeah,
He's your
it's
he's your soul. You guys met. This is for you. This is
yes,
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, he's very nice. He's a good man. Yeah, very fortunate that you got to meet this person
yes. Well,
by
and
by healing yourself. Otherwise, you would not have. You would have
no,
met somebody like the other two.
exactly,
It's by
because
healing yourself.
we keep repeating the same patterns with different people until we learn the lesson, until
Yeah,
we gain the wisdom.
yeah.
But then, and we can really learn that lesson really quickly. Some people want to do it really slowly, but it can be really fast. And so, don't think that, okay, I'm going to have to go to years of therapy or do years of anything. There are so many different modalities that can really shift the reality, which will start to rewire the brain over, maybe a month period.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So you're only stuck if you think you're stuck.
Hmm. Right. And you do sound therapy too. Does that help with this?
It does. So sound, it's interesting because one of the lives that I have been able to experience of one of my lives is actually as a Syrian extraterrestrial.
Oh,
And one of the things that we were teaching the humans as a group was how to do sound thought levitation, but also sound healing. And so the Syrians were the group who actually taught humans how to build these megalithic structures using the sound thought levitation process.
yeah.
And so my job wasn't that though. I was one of the genetic engineers
Oh,
modifying the human body. And that was through a sound frequency modulation coming
really?
out of our spacecraft. So it wasn't like we had to do physical manipulation of the body like we do here on Earth, where scientists are physically manipulating that. It
Hmm.
was a sound frequency thing. And so
Wow.
only last year, I just had this thing like, oh my God, why am I being drawn to sound healing? I need to learn this. I need to get certified. And now I understand why, because it is a significant part of the healing, because sound can penetrate to the core of every cell of our body. It can penetrate to the DNA to stimulate it in a way that other healing modalities doesn't. And you know, so for me, I have the, different chakra bowls because if we're going to we are energetic beings and we want to be clear channels for the energy moving through our body. That way we can get our answers from our higher self and source. So the more that we are aligned in our energy centers, that energy flows freely through our body. But then my favorite of the bowls is the 528 hertz crystal singing bowl, because that one is specifically designed for cellular and DNA repair.
Oh,
And so in the healing sessions that I do with people, the quantum cosmic energy healing, part of that includes sound healing as this energetic thing, because that the frequency of these different sounds breaks apart the energy that's stuck in our bodies.
Wow.
And when we can release that stuck energy and let it flow out, it actually starts to heal any physical ailments that we have. And it removes blockages in our mental minds that keep us from living a beautiful life. We are here on earth, in my understanding, to live a life of joy, passion, to follow our desires, to love, to and these are the higher states that we are moving to as a human group into fifth dimensional reality. And so the more that we can hold ourselves in those higher states of consciousness, the more that we're already living in that fifth dimensional realm.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you do the sound therapy, I've seen some people where they just do the sound bowl. Sometimes they place it on your body. Does that
Mhm.
make a difference?
It can, yeah, because the energy coming from the sound is just like right there physically on you. But it doesn't have to. You can do it remotely. Like
Oh,
I could play the sound bowl through the computer and you
really?
could still pick up that energy
Oh, wow.
because again, at the quantum realm, everything is connected. There's an idea of entanglement. So you have the ability to receive whatever energy I am sending out,
Wow.
whether it's through the sound or through channeled energy coming through my body. And so there are people, all over the world that can do distance healing. They don't need to be physically there with the person.
That's awesome. So that's
Yes,
what you do as well, because you do online teaching.
I do.
So
I
you
do.
do online healing too and teaching?
I do.
Wow.
And so earlier this year, I was I was told to lead 13 different galactic sessions,
Wow.
bring in the energy and wisdom of 13 different ET races. And every one of those sessions was channeled energy through my body, but it also included some of the sound healing. And so they would tell me which bowls to bring into the
Oh,
session and to be part of it. And so I was just, it's not nothing that I created. I was actually being guided and told by by my Arcturians specifically.
do you have to be in a meditative state for them to tell you these things?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I've learned to trust the clairs, and so one of I am clairaudient, so I hear things. I am also clairsentient, so I feel things. I'm claircognizant, so I just know things without no proof, but I just know.
Yeah.
And I'm less clairvoyant. I can visualize things if I'm being guided, but I don't necessarily have as strong of visuals come in yet as some of these other clair abilities. And so, before each session, I was, I was just tapping in and like, okay, what are we doing today? What do I need? And I just naturally flowed. Okay, we need this bowl, this bowl, this bowl. This is what we're doing. And again, it wasn't me trying to logically figure it out. I was just intuitively guided.
You're in a like a mode,
Yeah,
auto mode, and you just did
yeah,
it. That's really awesome. And I guess, is that something you can learn?
absolutely. Everyone has clair abilities, and it's like a practice. It's like a muscle,
Mm.
just practicing. And some people have, maybe one or two that are stronger naturally, that when they start working with that really in an intense way or trusting way, then the other clairs can come online easier.
Wow. I heard a TED talk once. I forget this guy's name. He was a college professor and he was doing sound therapy, and he was breaking cancer cells using, I can't remember what hertz it was, but that was amazing. And he showed it on the video where he
Mhm.
played the sound, and the cell broke apart.
Yeah. Well,
That's
and
amazing.
likely that was the 528 hertz, because that is the one, like the energy of that frequency
Mm-hmm.
is so powerful. And so, what one of the things that I love about doing these healing sessions is that because I'm playing the bowl for someone else, I'm getting that same energy, right? And
Yes.
so it's healing me at the same time it's healing someone else.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And at some point soon, I'm going to actually start teaching my modality to
Ooh,
people so that
I'm interested.
there are so many different ways that we can heal
Mm,
ourselves and help to heal others. And the more healed that we are, the more we're actually able to tap into these superpowers that we have. Because we have the ability to have all the clairs come online, to do telepathy. We naturally can do that, to
mhm.
be able to remote view, put our mind somewhere else and really see what's going on, experience what's going on.
Right.
And so the more that we do that, then again, our body just naturally is in a state where it can heal itself. And we can
I,
also, yeah, call on the different ET groups that specialize in different healing to run
okay.
that energy through us as well.
I also read that humming does that.
Yes.
It has that vibration when you go in that certain tone,
Hmm.
like the monks, how they
Yes.
can, yeah, and you can also help energy or energize your body
Yes.
and chakras that way as well.
Absolutely. And that was actually part of that Syrian method of the sound
Really?
toning
Mhm.
levitation process. It
Oh,
wasn't, yeah, it was an internal kind of thing coming from the vocal cords.
yeah, like a hum, I guess.
Yeah, just yeah.
That's really cool. Awesome. I can't wait for your classes or online classes for that. I'm really interested in that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's awesome. And not to bring you back to the UFO and that part of your life again, but do they still come to visit you?
So that particular group, um, not anymore.
Okay.
That was a group that, I mean, I still have a connection with them, but
Mm,
it's not a needed thing anymore.
okay.
Because why? What I was told about why those of us that were chosen was, it happened in 1988, that tour
Mm,
that I got to take.
okay.
And in 1988, we were still in the Cold War. We were on the verge of World War III. And so, there was a timeline where something really bad could have happened to Earth. And
Mm,
so they work closely with the Arcturians. So I again found this out just a couple of years ago because I'm like, okay, what's all of the relation to all of this, and why are they not one of the groups that's really known? Because they're a little colony. They are not like one of the big groups like a Pleiadian or a Lyran or an
okay.
Arcturian. And so what I found out is that they are not part of the Galactic Federation. They're very neutral, but they, because of my energy, my frequency that I am here to bring to Earth, I am here to be an energy point to help balance the Earth, to help, like, again, spread this message of love and unity. And so the Arcturians had asked them, kind of like, there was a connection of like, okay, take care of Lisa and take care of these other people that were brought there, just in case. And so now that timeline, now we're kind of in a timeline where something again could happen to Earth again because of Russia and Ukraine and all, and China and all that.
Right.
But it's a different reality now. We're in a very different time than we were in the 80s. And I don't need that same kind of protection that I did.
Mm, okay. So they were here more like a protection as well.
Yeah.
Wow. And so they help protect the earth, you think?
Well, that group that I
Or
was with, no, but there are other groups that
other?
do. Yeah, actually.
Okay.
So there are different galactic federations that are made up of different ET races that are working together to watch over Earth.
Okay.
To they actively, shut down nuclear missile
I've
sites,
heard that. Yes.
and sometimes if a missile is shot,
Hmm.
they will take it out. So
Okay.
do you remember 2018 when the supposed missile was coming to Hawaii?
Right. Yes. The
So
Kim Jong Un, that one.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the way that that situation played out was really interesting because um, in the middle, in that half hour period where
Hmm.
everyone's like, oh my God, are we going to die? There were several lights seen over the Pacific Ocean where that missile was supposedly like at. And it is my understanding, in fact, I'm getting chills as I say this, so that's my clear sentence, is they took that missile out
Wow.
to protect Hawaii.
Okay.
And and then they said it was a false alarm.
The
Well,
government's not going to tell us that.
no,
Exactly.
false alarms don't happen like that.
Yeah. Somebody accidentally pushed the button. A
Right.
warning signal accidentally.
Accidentally,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And so that's just one instance where
Wow.
there was, some evidence of them actually really protecting.
Wow.
So there are a lot of groups that do want to protect us, or they don't go against our free will, though. We are
Okay.
free will humans.
Hmm.
Not every planet is free will, but we are
Okay.
a free will planet. And so within bounds, they let us do what we're going to do. But then if we're getting a little out of hand, then they intervene to a degree because everything that we do here on Earth has a direct ripple effect out into the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. But they're our family too. So,
Mhm.
but even if they weren't our family, what we do here impacts them. And so they don't want us to destroy ourselves because that actually hurts their world too.
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah, it would. Um, and I have one more question. You talked about living from one's yes. What does that mean?
Oh, so again, one of my modalities is human design. And
Yeah,
when I
I don't
learned,
understand that either.
okay, so human design, it's a modality that combines astrology, the I Ching, Hindu chakra system, Kabbalah
Okay.
tree of life, genetics, and quantum mechanics.
Wow.
And yeah, so it gives us a blueprint of who
Mm,
we were born to be in this specific life.
okay.
It also gives us some indicators of what we're bringing in karmically, what lessons we need to learn, what we're bringing in from our epigenetic lineage, what direction we're moving towards in this life, what our soul's purpose is. But it also gives us really practical tools like how do we get to our very specific yes and no's? Because when we can tap into our own wisdom, our own innate ability to get a true answer for us, not based on anyone else, it may not make sense to anyone else.
Mm,
But when we get a yes on something, take that step, no matter how scared or fearful you are,
mm,
because most people have fear of the unknown. And so if you're getting a yes
mm,
and you're like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that. If you take that first step, the
mhm.
next step will appear, and the next step will appear, and the next step will appear. And so that yes, that is innate in us, is our internal GPS guiding us on our soul's journey, what we came here to do. And so, an example of this, I had already been working with my human design when I was married to that second husband.
Mhm.
And I got a really strong yes that I needed to leave him.
Mm,
That was hard for the family, for my kids, but I had to follow that yes.
mm.
The next thing I got a yes for was starting a spiritual business. At the time, I had a very successful interior design home staging business. And I mean, I made a great living. I was traveling the world. Like, I had employees. I didn't have to be there. I had an amazing life and I had no reason to shift gears.
Mm.
But I got this yes of like, okay, I really need to go down this path. And so I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but I got trained in that first modality, past life regression therapy, and I started that spiritual business. And so I was running both at the same time.
Wow.
And then I, you know, knew things would come up and I would get a yes and I would do that. And then I got the yes to move to Hawaii in the middle of COVID. Like, you know, I we bought our house sight unseen, just through a video tour that our realtor did. And I mean, fortunately, I have the vision being from that interior design world. Like, I know
Mm.
a floor plan and it was staged so I could see spatially. And
Mhm.
so I got a yes, that's our house. And so when we're living again from a place of, if we get a true yes, not a, oh, I feel obligated to say
Mm.
yes,
Mm.
but an
Mhm.
actual soul yes, then we are in flow with the universe. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's encouraging. That's encouraging. So, as we wrap up our conversation, I want to ask one advice or your insight that you'd like to leave with our listeners, especially those who are seeking to embrace their cosmetic or cosmic, I should say, heritage. What kind of advice would you have for them?
Well, so everyone has this connection to everyone else here on earth, but also to higher dimensional beings. We are all connected to source. And really remembering that you are more than just this one human life wearing this one human costume. You are energy, and energy is never destroyed, it just changes form. And so, really, how are you living? Are you living from a place of joy and following your passion? Or are you stuck and miserable in your life? You get to choose.
Hmm.
So
Again,
choose
with a
joy.
yes, right?
Yes, choose joy, choose love. And I would say, get over judgment.
Mm.
First and foremost, judgment of yourself, because all judgment of external things as actually originates of judgment of ourselves. And so when we heal those parts of us, then we can really love and understand and appreciate other people and their differences. And ultimately, that is how we're going to usher in this connection
Mm-hmm.
of open contact with our galactic brothers and sisters.
That's awesome. Yeah. And where can people find you at?
So my website is mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And then I have BigIslandUFOtours.com.
Yes. That was awesome, by the way. We saw so many crazy things that night. We
Yes,
saw so many things that we could not explain. It
yes.
was fantastic.
Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
that's a regular occurrence. And so, I'm also very active on Facebook as Dr. Lisa Thompson. And then I also have my YouTube channel, Connection to the Cosmos with Dr. Lisa Thompson.
You are so busy.
I am, and I have my newest book that's almost ready to be
Yay.
released.
That's right. You are. That's right. That's awesome. I'd like to have you back when you have your book finished. I'd love
Absolutely.
to want to read your book. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Lisa, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I know you're a busy person, but you took the time to come on my podcast, and I really appreciate that. I was very nervous, but you made me very relaxed. So thank you so much.
Well,
Thank
no,
you.
I appreciate the opportunity and I love the questions that you asked and what you are bringing to the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Talk to you
Thank,
soon.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery and manifestation. Your presence and support fill my heart with joy, and I'm honored to have you as part of our Sensible Hippie community. If you resonated with this episode, I kindly ask that you leave a 5-star rating and a heartfelt review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to spread the magic and inspire more soul seekers to embark on their own transformative journeys. And now, as you step back into your own daily lives, may you carry the essence of this journey with you. Remember that you are a co-creator of your reality, and the universe is always conspiring to bring you closer to your dreams. Embrace the adventure, welcome the unknown, and trust the whispers of your heart. Until we meet again, remember, you are magic, and the world is your canvas. Manifest your dreams with love, light, and pure intentions. Until the next time, take care. Bye.
This is my time. I'm on the rise. Can't hold me down, I'm too fly. This is my time. Ready to shine, brighter than all of the lights. 'Cause when it's game time, seconds away and the game's on the line. There ain't no doubt in my mind. Beating the buzzer like, this is my time. This is my moment. You better bet that I'm on it. Ready and set, I'ma own it. Blast it to 10, then keep going. There ain't no coasting, I never settle, don't play. Putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day. Foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid all my dues, waited in line. 8, 7, now it's about time that I take mine. 6, 5, king of the jungle, heart of a lion. 4, 3, 2, 1, watch out, here I come. This is my time, I'm on the rise. Can't hold me down, I'm too fly. This is my time, ready to shine, brighter than all of the lights. 'Cause when it's game time, seconds away and the game's on the line. There ain't no doubt in my mind. Beating the buzzer like, this is my time. This is my time. This is my shot clock goes tick-tock. Haters wish that I slip. No, I don't miss. MJ all hits. Watch me pop off, I'm the king now. Moonwalk to the ring now. Keep on wondering how. Let that choir sing now. 10, 9, paid all my dues, waited in line. 8, 7, now it's about time that I take mine. 6, 5, king of the jungle, heart of a lion. 4, 3, 2, 1, watch out, here I come. This is my time, I'm on the rise.